Despite the easing of travel restrictions, the nation of Cuba remains a mystery to many. A photographer with Suncoast ties is capturing some of the culture through her camera's lens. SNN's Grant Boxleitner has more in this edition of Feel Good Friday.
It's Feel Good Friday. Right now we're here on the campus of New College, and this is the Jane Bancroft Cook Library, and I am joined by a very special guest. This is an alum, Lynn Buchanan, and you are a photographer, and you took a trip to Cuba and brought back some amazing photos. What inspired this trip?
At the end of October, beginning of November, right before the border opened, I went on a cross-cultural journeys, people-to-people trip with photographers.
And we're taking a look at some of these photos right now. This gentleman in the boat, tell us about that.
That's on the Toa River. He took me out to an estuary, and they have very little pollution because there are no nitrates or fertilizers. The only problems come from water treatment plants.
Interesting. And we hear so much about the vintage cars in Cuba. Tell us about this photograph.
That's in Havana, but that belongs actually to a family. It's not a tourist car, and everyone can work on these automobiles. I went to a shack in Regla where I also saw them work on them. They're amazing.
And you've taken dozens of photographs, but I want to focus in on one more. This over here almost looks like a painting.
That's in Santiago Bay. We took a boat trip around the bay, and it was in the late afternoon, and the light shone on it so beautifully, reflected in the water.
And so for this exhibit, people are going to be able to see this coming up soon on the Suncoast. Quickly tell us about that.
That's going to be at the South Florida Museum starting October 8th. There's a group exhibition on Cuba with Clyde Butcher and some other local photographers.
Really fascinating. A lot of folks are starting to travel to Cuba with the easing of restrictions. Lynn Buchanan, thank you so much for joining us. And that is going to do it from here. Let's send it back to the studio.
That's SNN's Grant Boxleitner with his weekly edition of Feel Good Friday. Buchanan also has some photos on her Facebook page. Again, her works will be part of the Cuban exhibit at the South Florida Museum in Bradenton beginning October the 8th.